you see it and then immediately start typing. I hate it. I hate it. It's terrible.
Wait until it gets out and then we focus back like that.
Alrighty, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 4:03 p.m. and we are going to move into roll call. Senator Hassan, Senator Franzen, Senator Balogun, Senator Emke, Senator Ponte, Senator Bugney, Senator Maega, Senator Rajesh Karki, Senator Mpenga, Senator Dietrich,
Here.
Senator Spouts, Senator Moore,
Here.
Senator Maba,
Present.
Senator Parrick,
Here.
Senator Karki,
Here.
Senator Livingston, Senator Riggle,
Here.
Senator Colleran,
Here.
Senator Zelmer,
Present.
and Senator Hillstead.
Here.
I'm here, President Narala.
Present.
BPJ is gone and we have quorum. So now we are going to move into the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any dissent to the consent agenda? Any dissent? All right, so then the consent agenda is approved. So then we'll move into presentations and we have President Inch here. So President Inch, you can come on up.
Well, thank you all for having me today. I know that your agenda is tight. So I will be brief, but I do want to just express my appreciation for the leadership of your president and vice president. I think the partnership that we have grown with our students and together has been really important over the last few years to create some real strong agendas and initiatives that I think have improved the quality of our life on campus and strengthened our culture. So I appreciate the continued work that we get to do on trying to advance together some common goals and ambitions. Now, just to let you know, overall, our campus is healthy. We are at the highest level of enrollment that we have had since 2014. 15,250 plus students decided to enroll here. That is a good thing. And as we continue to grow, that gives us more opportunities not only to work with and experience people from different places in our state and beyond, but people from different cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities. All of that is good. It adds a richness to what it is we're able to do on our campus. In fact, when students choose what university to go to coming out of high school, they choose us second only to the University of Minnesota. And I'm thinking we're going to be able to beat that at some point. But growth also has challenges associated with it. If you try to get into residence halls this year, it was a struggle because our residence halls are full. And when I talk a little bit about how we're going to start thinking about building out areas of our campus, that is an area of concern about making sure that our students have affordable housing. That said, our campus has been doing well. We continue to thrive and our resources are stable. But you may have heard that we have a bit of a budget pinch this year, which I'll explain in a minute, and what that means. So we get about $200 million from the state and from tuition. So over the course of a year, we have about $200 million. That's the general fund budget. But in addition to that, we have a variety of other income sources that go into different budget lines. And those include things like residence halls or parking, bookstore, the auxiliaries we have. And all total, all the money that comes into the university is about $340 million. But $200 million is the general operating fund. That's how we do our day-to-day operations. And that money is important to us because that's how we're able to staff our class sections and how we're able to do the different things that we get to do on campus. Last year, after we negotiated the contracts with the different bargaining units we have, and after we settled in about how much inflation was going to impact us, our system advocated with the legislature for a $61 million supplemental budget to cover the increased costs that we were going to have in operations. That did not get passed. And because that did not get passed, that meant that we have to cover a part of those resources that we don't have. We get from the state allocation to us, we get about 9.2%. So in our case, that gap is about $6 million. Now, $6 million is a lot of money. And that's not always, it's hard to find $6 million, right? But there are different mechanisms we can use this year to try to overcome the $6 million in ways that aren't going to adversely impact the learning experience or the campus as a whole. One way to do that is we paused on hiring positions that could wait a year or hadn't been filled for a year and could wait another year. We also were able to use some of our reserve accounts from across the campus to buy down that so that we'll have a balanced budget by the end of the year. But it does mean that moving into the next biennium, which is what the system is working on now, is what our legislative request is going to be for the next biennium, that moving into the next biennium, we will need to make sure that what we allocate in our budget is something that we're going to be able to afford through our tuition income and through the resources we get from the state. So tomorrow, our cabinet will be having a meeting about what is the process we're going to use to vet expenditures so that we're very judicious about how we spend our money. For example, some that are fairly straightforward are where we have duplicative programs, services, things that are going on in two different places maybe could be consolidated, especially if they're the exact same thing. We have plenty of those. But there are other areas that we might be able to shift resources in order to leverage the assets we have better or to stop doing things that aren't being used as much. So that process is tomorrow. At the same time, our system is working on its request of the legislature for next year. And the request they're going to make of the legislature next year is about $465 million, $500 million. That'd be the largest ask we've ever made. And that is to cover 4 sets of things. One is to ensure that we continue to have quality student experiences and that our system continues to operate. Second is that we have an investment in workforce development and planning so that we're able to have better partnerships with industry and the equipment in our own labs to help support it. Third is to make sure that our buildings and all of our physical assets are taken care of, or for some of our campuses, they need to pull a building down, and they have resources to pull a building down as opposed to boarding it up. And then finally, to look at the quality of the student experience here, to invest in those experiences that are important for student retention and student, everything from advising to internships, all of the high impact practices. Now we're hopeful this gets funded, but if it doesn't, we'll have to make some adjustments in what we are planning to budget for next year. So we're looking at the optimistic target is that gets funded and what we'll be able to do next year, or the worst case scenario, nothing gets funded and we'll stay with the amount of resource that we have now, or what's more likely is something in between. And that'll be tomorrow's project, is working to budget that. While that's going on, we have 3 large building projects that we're trying to move forward on. The one that's most public that you probably know about is it is really time to replace Armstrong Hall. And I suspect that all of you either have had or will have shortly the experience of being able to go take classes in Armstrong Hall. That building is dated, and it is not reflective of the kind of education your faculty want to be able to give you. It is not reflective of the way we learn now or the way we deliver courses. So over the last 2 years, we've been working to develop plans for a new Armstrong Hall. And the new Armstrong Hall that we're proposing, we just met in this room with representatives from our system office to go through those designs and have them ask questions about it. The new building will be over by the library, across from the dining hall. It will be connected to the library, and it will share services with the library, but it's going to be designed in a very open building. So while it'll have classrooms, as you would expect, and offices and places for the dean to be and all of those things, it also has an atrium in the middle of it with a large area on the main floor that's intended for things like breakout sessions, presentations, or poster sessions, research showcases, lectures. The classrooms open up onto it, so be able to have lectures or other large kind of symposia that we could offer. It's designed to be a highly interactive space. So we're going to go through the process. It did not get funded last year. We're going to go through the process to see if we can't get it funded this year. I think it's a necessary part of our campus. It's a necessary component of what needs to happen. We're working with our real estate foundation to explore how we can get a new residence hall built sooner than later. Probably after your times, but in the next 3 to 5 years, because we need a new residence hall. And we simply don't have sufficient beds on campus, and odds are we probably need 2 new residence halls. Right now, there's a study going on that is examining our capacity on campus, the projected student demand that we're going to have over the next 10 years, and what the regional capacity is of affordable housing that would be appropriate for students. And I don't think it's a mystery to anybody. There's not a lot of affordable housing out there. And that's why we think the university needs to be able to step in and have at least some options for students who want to stay on or closer to campus. The last thing, and I've said this before for a couple of years, I'm working on it, is we do need a replacement for Blakesley Stadium. That building is past its useful life. It is insufficient for, well, it's simply insufficient for what it is we do. Athletics is an important part of what we do. I look at it as, you know, one of the many things that we do that connect us with external audiences and communities. So if you got to see Cabaret, you saw a really good example of a theater that is full of people from our community as well as from our campus, but they're there to see truly an exceptional performance. If you go to the kinds of things that we put on in the arts or in our galleries or on our fields, on the ice, you know, all of those things that our students are doing that attract national attention, that's pretty impressive. And I think when people see our students performing at such high levels and so well, that they're impressed with the quality of what, you know, the students who come here, but then the opportunities they have when you all are here. And so we're working on those, and I'm hoping we get some breakthroughs this year, and I'm hoping all three of those will come to pass before the end of this decade. But it's a goal, and it's part of the long-range strategy. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have and talk about any point you want to make.
Are there any questions for President Inch? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today. We really appreciate it. My question is about the current state of Armstrong Hall and going forward. We've requested this money to build new Armstrong and take down old Armstrong.
Yes.
But in the event that they tell us no, and even if they told us no a second time, I know that the upkeep and maintenance on Armstrong, the cost of that is continuing to grow. So in the event that, in a worst case scenario event, where in several years' time, the state has continued to tell us no for funding, at one point, does Armstrong stop being usable in terms of cost?
We're close to that, right? I mean, just to fix everything that needs to be fixed in it, just not to make any improvements. I mean, in Armstrong Hall, for example, there is no breakout space if you wanted to go work out on teams. You can't even take a team of, you know, students working on a research project and get into the faculty office, right? There's no, it's tiny, those corridors. It is not a usable building for the way people teach and learn today. So we've been asking since 2014 to have a replacement. I know the governor's in favor of it, but it hasn't happened yet. And so I don't want to speculate that it will never happen, but let's imagine for a moment. If we had to fix it, just to bring it up to speed is a $66 million task. It needs new heating and ventilation. It needs ADA accessibility. It needs better lighting. It needs a lot. And then there's foundation work that needs to happen on it. There's also siding that is failing on it that is now being held in place with straps. If it doesn't get funded, we have two choices. And at some point you have to decide if, you know, one way or the other. I'll give you a third choice in a minute. If it doesn't get funded, we continue to repair and use it to the best we can with the resources we have, as expensive as it is. If we don't use it and we take it offline, there are 55 classrooms that now don't have a home. And that would force us to be more online, and I wouldn't wish to do that because we don't have any place close to us that would have 55 classrooms. The alternative, I think, that the group that we met with earlier today may want us to look at is, you know, the new building is $86 million all in, right? And I think they're thinking, well, maybe if you don't go quite as fancy or make it smaller, we can get those prices down. But again, it's not like we have an excess of classrooms and office spaces and breakout spaces. We use our space well. And so we will resist that. And, you know, part of the conversation today is we're using part of the library to connect the library with the new building, and we'll put the computer labs that are in Armstrong now, will go into the library. There'll be some different learning spaces in the library and the remodel of the library. And they're saying, well, you could postpone that for a few years. Not really. I mean, our computer spaces are used by just the English 101 classes are heavy use all during the day. Where do those go? So we're going to push hard this year to get this funded. I think it's a necessary project. Our legislators believe it's a necessary project. The things to watch for are going to be the legislative forecast, the economic forecast for the state, which will come out later in November. If we're looking like there's some resources that the state has available, we can push really hard. If the budget's not balanced, we will push less hard. The second thing to pay attention to, as you know, Tuesday's a voting day. Every one of the legislators on the ballot that you will have chances to vote for have a position on higher ed and public higher education. And so for me, I'm as close to a single issue voter as you can get, as I'm going to support public higher education. So if the election goes in support of public higher education, outstanding. If it doesn't, then we'll have to redesign how it is we might want to approach funding some of our capital projects. That's a long answer. That's a great question.
Senator Zelmer.
Thank you very much, President Inch, for coming and speaking. I was wondering, so let's say Armstrong goes in like 2 years, right? And then in 5 years from now, we get a res hall. How long would it take for Blakesley Stadium to be put up then?
Well, so all of this depends on funding. And the funding mechanisms are different. So Armstrong Hall is funded by the legislature. And so we get a bond for it. The bond gets issued. We pay back the bond over time, but that would start very quickly. The designs that the team was looking at today are 99% designs. We would be ready to go. Actually, be ready to go as soon as the legislature makes a decision on it, if they make a decision in 2025 at the end of their session. So we would know somewhere in May if this is likely to happen. Residence Hall comes through a different funding mechanism. They're called revenue bonds, or we might engage in a private-public partnership that would have a private entity come in and build it, and then we would lease the building back from the private entity. And that could happen within 2 or 3 years. The stadium has to be funded entirely on private dollars. So that's donations. And so I've been working with a lot of people on getting that funded. And as part of a bigger project I'd like to see get done over the next 5 years is reimagining the entire south side of campus. The entire south side of campus is not very accessible. We have very good intramural fields, for example. We've got 2 baseball diamonds back there that are lit, but who has access to them? They're hard to get to, right? And in the summer, it does kill me that I can walk out in the fields in the summer and there's no one out there except the guy mowing the lawn. And the worry I have is we have youth leagues in town that could be using those fields, should be using those fields. We have a 2.5-mile fitness trail. It needs to be cleaned up some, but most people don't know it's there, along with the ropes course or the rock climbing wall. That needs to be cleaned up and brought online so that people can use it, have access to good outdoor space on this campus. And so that's a longer range project, but I think that would improve the quality of life significantly if we were able to give people easy access to the greenery that's the south half of campus that goes unused. I mean, everything, we use it for intramurals, but in the summer, that's a place that people ought to be able to ride bikes, go for walks, jog. There'll be cross-country skiing opportunities there, or snowshoeing, depending on how much snow we have. We ought to have the space that's designed around 4 seasons. I've asked them to put an ice rink out back there. Apparently we have 2 in inventory, but we ought to have, skating opportunities or in the square. So we're trying to imagine what that space could look like. And, if we get a little further on my other projects, I'll bring some designs to show you.
Awesome, thank you.
Are there any other questions for President Inch?
Wow,
Seeing none, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming.
I appreciate the invitation.
Alrighty, up next we have Art of Equity. Is there someone here for Art of Equity? Jess is on Zoom, okay.
And Timothy as well, and I believe Aaron might be in the room.
I am in the room.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Do I have permission to share the screen?
You should have access now.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I would just like to introduce myself. I don't think that I presume anyone knows who I am. My name is Dr. Timothy Berry. I am a professor in the Department of Education Leadership, but I've been involved in the past several years with this initiative that we call the Action Research Team of Equity, or ARC. I'm getting sort of a feedback, and I'm not sure if you all are hearing the same thing I am, but it's quite pronounced on my screen. Not hello, check 1 2. Still there.
Rashad, it looks like you are you're not muted on your laptop.
I haven't joined. Oh.
Test 1 2 test. Okay, that's okay. Oh, that's still there. Sorry. Okay, I'll just keep trying. So as I was saying, I am involved in this initiative that started about 3.5, almost 4 years ago now. And our group wanted to bring this to student government because we have some intentions on potentially engaging you with some, maybe some questions and focus groups later after this meeting. We just want to give you a quick overview of what we're doing. This is related to our Equity 2030 goals for the university, as well as some of our overall college university equity goals. And so what this is a framework from academic affairs that we are embarking upon with faculty and staff and then as well as students to work on particular ways to engage the outcomes that we desire of our university. Before we get into some of what they are, we really think through this particular philosophical lens. This is a quote that I often use, and it's from W.E.B. Du Bois. And when he returned from visiting Africa, the continent, he said, "I think I have seen the perfect education system. It is when people sit in a circle around a tree." And so there's a lot that I can unpack with that. I won't do that today. We only have 10 minutes, but it's really around this idea of building collective and community-based processes and efforts to work so that everyone can be successful in our community, in our university community. And so this framework involves many, many aspects. So the Art of Equity includes administrators, faculty, library and learning, members from the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, MAVPAS, which is supplemental instruction, the Center for Academic Success, university advising, institutional analytics, transfer pathways, of course, students, and then we have the Office of the Provost, which is where this particular effort began. So what I want to share is that here are our 3 goals that we have overall for the Art of Equity. It's really in looking at how to reduce racial disparity in the drop, fail, and withdrawal rates that exist within classrooms. And it's also to reduce the overall DFW rates in particularly undergraduate courses. The second goal is to help courses achieve the Equity 2030 goals for our campus. And so we have identified through academic affairs and the Office of the Provost, 85% success is really the target that we've communicated to faculty with this. And then we also, again, part of the system-wide, the Penn State system has this goal of no gaps, and so or I call them racial disparities, because we're looking at disaggregating by race and ethnicity, which is in the language of Equity 2030 at the system office. And then the third goal is to support participatory action research plans with faculty. And then again, these are student courses. We're going to be providing, and we have been providing, institutional support and pedagogical strategies that lead to more student success. With that being said, we've identified some really key indicators for success within our courses that we initially did a pilot of 10 courses that we targeted to try some of this particular framework, and we've had some really good results in some of the ways that we've come together in the collective formation. I will tell you that the number one overall finding that we have is that our learning has been that we want and see the need to create a new culture of learning that destigmatizes all of the ways that human beings learn. So in other words, destigmatizing that perhaps when students get supplemental instruction or tutoring or math pass help, it shouldn't be deemed as a negative thing as if the student is deficient. It's just a way that people learn, and there's lots of different ways that human beings learn. And it's a collective approach. It's all of our responsibility to be sure about everyone else's well-being and success. So that's our overall learning. And so the final thing I'll say is this. This is really about how justice and equity can work in a holistic frame. This is one aspect, obviously, in academics, but we also know that there's mental health and well-being and belongingness that's a part of this framework because it shouldn't be excluded from the academic environment. However, what I like to often sum this up as is saying this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He says, "The arc of the moral universe bends towards justice." And my particular way to add on to that is saying we must do the bending as a group. And so we'll stop there. I'll stop sharing, and I will turn it over to Jess. Jess is the one who helped me get this get on this agenda today. Professor Schomburg, I'm sorry, I should say Professor Schomburg, who can help talk about a little bit about what we intend to and how we engage or want to engage student government with this. Please.
Yeah, thank you. So we have been meeting, and I say we, it's mostly Dr. Berry. I show up when I can, but we've been meeting with the different leadership teams for each different academic college to share some of what we've learned through these projects and also to encourage faculty to participate. The intent of this is to support student learning, to support student success, to recognize the full humanity of the students who are coming to our university and the professors who are teaching. And again, that goes back to the collective and cooperative work that Dr. Berry mentioned. But as we do that, sort of reach out to the faculty and administration and staff on campus, we also really need to reach out to you, to students, to hear what you are experiencing in classrooms, and also to hear any ideas you have about ways we can incorporate your participation in making this successful. And that goes back to the participatory action research. We've worked with faculty to do sort of mini research projects in classes to identify what teaching techniques are useful and help students learn more effectively. But there may be opportunities for us to work with you directly to see what else on campus needs that sort of attention. So we do have it scheduled to do a focus group on November 13th, I think at 3. So we'll have more time then, but if anyone has any initial feedback you would like us to take into consideration, please feel free. This is a great time.
Are there any questions or comments for either Jess or Timothy? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. I have a question. You said that you did some research on teaching methods and techniques that help students learn. Could you give us a couple of examples of things that you found that were helpful to students?
Sure. One of the most salient findings from our pilot, and I've known this for a long time, so I've been in education for over 30 years, K-12 first and then higher education. And so some of this is not necessarily new, but for some instructors, it is new if they haven't been trained as a teacher as I have. I was trained to actually be a teacher. One of the things that I will say about your question is that when students are given the opportunity to do more frequent, what we call formative assessments for their learning, they do better. In other words, when instructors build into their curriculum and their plan, their course plan, testing or checking and assessing learning more frequently as opposed to doing like a high stakes test only like once or twice, like to do a midterm and then you do a final. That's actually something that in the research suggests that is a little less efficient than doing more frequent testing and assessing learning, and actually more assessments that have lower stakes to them. So in other words, that promotes this idea of repetition and practice that students need to gain mastery and skill. So that's one example of the things that we've been finding. I'll mention one other thing. One other thing is just really in how instructors who have in our pilot project thought about what was best in terms of the most like broad way that they could support student learning in a number of ways. So it's not just one thing. It might be teaching, strategies, but it also might be combining like that last strategy that I just said with the fact that why not incorporate the idea that a situation like supplemental instruction or tutoring is normalized in a classroom setting so that it's become a normal part of how a class is set up, that students have that option should they want it without, like, again, only calling it out, when a student so-called needs extra help, but just make it a normal part of the options that exist. So those are two examples of something that we've been finding that do work better. And we've seen some, again, drops in rates by instructors who use those particular strategies. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments, or any other feedback? I know that they all did mention before that you do have a focus group on the 13th at 3 p.m. So I would just definitely make sure that you are at that meeting, and I think it's gonna be a joint committee meeting. So just make sure that you're all in attendance, so then you can bring back more comments and questions, and also like any other feedback as well. And hopefully this helps get you thinking about issues that you might see as well. Perfect. Well, I don't think there's anything else, but Jess, I saw that you unmuted, so if you have any other
Yeah, I just wanted to
remarks.
thank you all so much for your time, and I look forward to having a more in-depth discussion in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Me as well. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and your week. Be well.
Thank you. Alrighty, up next we have accessibility resources. If you'd like to come up to our podium.
It's a lot different than when I was in Stuttgart. I'm the tech person in the office, so you would think I would. Anyway. Buddy folks, thank you, Madam Speaker. My name is Alex J. Lucier. I am the Assistant Director for Accommodations and Student Success and Accessibility Resources. I'm here to kind of give a update / kind of get y'all in the know. But before I do that, I just wanted to know who here is at least familiar with accessibility resources. Nice. Okay. So we're located in the lower level of the library at the end of the tunnel, library side from the, where the CSU bullpen is, and where the office that deals with student accommodations for students who have disabilities. So, before I change slides. So, brief overview. Accessibility resources, like I said, we're the office that does stuff for student accommodations. You can just put all the content of the slide on there. I don't know why I added all the animations on there. Accessibility Resources is MSU's Disability Resource Office. We are legally mandated to exist, basically. There are various laws that protect students with disabilities, in particular Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Americans with Disabilities Act of 2008, and the 1990, and the Americans with Disabilities Amendments Act of 2008 are what primarily guide us. And those tell us that as a federally funded institution, we are legally not allowed to discriminate or deny access to benefits, services, or activities for any student who is a qualified student with disabilities based on their disability. And so the role of our office is we determine accommodations being changes to courses or content, not necessarily content, but like how students can access the course so they can have equal access to be able to get the information and then show that they understand the information. So common accommodations are things like extended time for testing, testing in a quieter or reduced distraction environment, sign language interpreting. I do a lot of getting digital textbooks for students where a physical textbook is the only one available and they need to use like a text reading software. So we determine it. We work with a student who comes in the office, says that they need accommodations. It's a 1 hour intake meeting to talk about experiences, barriers, successes, all that type of stuff that could help develop a accommodation plan that would address the barriers that they face because of their disability. And so we coordinate the accommodations, especially on an ongoing basis for students who have a permanent disability. We also deal with temporary. You break your leg and you need to be out of class or you need to use a wheelchair or something like that. And then any disability type affects pregnancy. So if a person who's pregnant develops gestational diabetes and they have to have something to go with that, we'll be the ones to coordinate that. We work with the professors to make sure that their accommodations are set in the class. So on there it says we're collaborators because we help with that. But beyond the accommodations piece, we also advise general campus accessibility. Kind of newer, I made a form called the Report a Barrier. It's now the Report a Barrier button. So if somebody were to find a barrier on campus, whether it's digital, physical, classroom, whatnot, if you go to mnsu.edu/report-a-barrier, you can report that and it goes to a team and I'm the first responder. So I'll be the one to send it off to whomever is the one who addresses that. Most common one we get is the Armstrong elevator not working and somebody having a class on the 3rd floor who can't get there. So we also get a lot of responses of people who can't find something on the website, and I'll usually just help them, but say this is not a disability barrier. But we're still helpful people. We also do things like training and events where we can, and then we are the ones who do the ADA advisory committee. On the right side, there's the org chart of our office. Dr. Karina Mole is our senior director and the ADA/504 compliance officer for the campus. And then we have, including her, 5 full-time staff and 2 graduate assistants. One thing we are not, or 3 things we are not, are advisors, tutors, or curriculum designers or experts. And so that collaborator piece is there. We'll work with the faculty member to make sure their accommodations are put into place, but like we won't be the ones to go into the classroom and do it for them. We're advising the instructors. So next slide. I wanted to give you a couple of updates. The Minnesota legislature back in April passed what's called the Minnesota Respond, Innovate, Succeed, and Empower, or RISE Act. The Campus RISE Act follows a lot of other states that have similar ones. It doesn't go into effect until January 2025, but we're already making some changes to anticipate that. The main impacts of this, the Minnesota 135A 163 is the law. The big main pieces, dissemination of policy. Universities and colleges have to be using clear, plain language, have a policy that states like students who need reasonable accommodations need to contact so-and-so office, and they can do so at any point in their educational journey. And that should come into at multiple points. So on the application, during admissions, during open houses, on the academic catalog, like it should be prominent that this policy exists. They advise disability resource offices on the role of documentation, documentation being information provided by a third party, so it's medical specialist, whatever, to help shed more light on the student's experience. The RISE Act saying that documentation is not required to start the process. A student self-reporting, whether that's to our office or to a professor or whomever, by saying I need accommodations means that we have to start the interactive process. Types of documentation, now they've clarified things like IEPs or individual education plans, 504 plans from K-12, military disability determinations, like a lot of different types of documentation have to be taken into consideration. And then they add a really big part is that if a faculty member determines that an accommodation would be an undue burden or a fundamental alteration and it's not reasonable, they have to provide in writing the reason why it is unreasonable. So that way the student has that information should they disagree, and that if they're not given their accommodation, the student is able to withdraw from the course without any academic or financial penalty. Still figuring out what that's going to look like, but that's what it tells us. And so the second half of this slide, like I said, we're already making some changes ahead of that mandate. So for example, we've been communicating with other offices on campus where that policy dissemination is supposed to be happening. So we've already talked with admissions to get language of like what should we say during our events and that type of stuff. We've made it now so the process to get started no longer requires documentation. It may be required if you go to the meeting and there's not enough information from the interview. The person who's giving the intake interview can ask for more, but they would also help you determine like what you would need. You can't just say sorry. We've already brought in the types of documentation we receive and then have been working on clarifying and standardized policies and procedures. For example, something I'm working on is like a student handbook for students who are registered with AR. So everyone knows like all of the processes, all the policies, procedures, practices, all that type of stuff. Next slide. Second one, this one is university-wide. Context-wise, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act compels state and local governments to ensure that their services, programs, activities are accessible to people with disabilities, and that extends to digital, so apps, websites, digital content. In April of this year, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division finalized a rule for digital accessibility, which revised Title II, formally adopting what's called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. So as soon as April 2026, we are compelled to use WCAG, specifically the 2.1 guidelines level AA for all new digital content, and that includes course content. Instructors will not be able to legally use content that is not accessible, which is kind of a big thing. And so in the second half of the slide, there's been a university-wide planning group. It's not like a committee, it's kind of just people who are involved. So academic affairs, accessibility resources, IT, a plethora of people have been meeting since the summer to talk about this change and to find a way to unite all of the digital accessibility efforts that are happening on campus. Like President Inch said, that there are a lot of things that get duplicated, a lot of processes duplicated. We're saying, let's all get together and make sure we're not all inventing 4 different types of wheels, that we're all building on the same car, basically. So moving forward, the university is looking at purchasing a new accessibility software for D2L. They put out a request for proposals and only one company responded to it, and it's called Yuja. And it's basically like a platform that integrates into D2L where it will tell an instructor as they're working on the class whether the content is accessible or not. So they upload a PDF and it'll tell them like what's not accessible about it. Or they post a video, it's not captioned, it can warn that type of stuff. We're also working on disseminating the need for digital accessibility across campus and developing training for digital literacy, accessibility, web publishing, that type of stuff. And so more information will be coming out as those are developed across different levels. We understand we need to start with basic digital literacy before we're training people to do kind of higher workload type stuff. And so this will impact anyone who touches website, digital content, anything like that. So that'll be coming down the pike. Next slide. Oh, that's the last slide. Here to answer any questions, or if you have ideas of things that maybe you think we could be doing better, or if you've heard anything from constituents that may be good for us to bring to our attention. I believe we have external reviewers that were here yesterday and today, so I think y'all had a chance to talk with them. So I'm excited to see what their report says, because I heard some interesting things from folks.
Are there any questions Senator Zalman.
Hi, thank you for coming in. I was wondering, where's your guys' office and how can students apply for accessibility resources?
So we're Memorial Library 132. It's in the lower level. I still say basement, but they tell me to stop saying basement, but it's brick walls in the underground. So, but the side of the tunnel that's in the library, not the bullpen. mnsu.edu/access is our website. If you go to there, there's like a big getting started section for students want to get started. As long as a student either visits the office, calls, emails, does the website button, what have you, there's an application. We have multiple ways. As long as a student contacts us, then we'll work on that. It's called the interactive process. Like we have to, it's not a negotiation, it's more of like we need to be on the same page. So that's where that take comes in and stuff like that. So if a student has self-identifies as having a disability, they would do the interactive process. I had stated before when like the legal piece, legally we have to determine qualified student with disability, and that just means a person who has a disability needs to be able to meet the minimum requirements for their program, the school, et cetera, with or without accommodations. So for example, we couldn't tell a student that they were denied entry into a program by reason of a disability. Now, if they just don't have the minimum qualifications, they can't say that they were discriminated against because of the disability kind of thing. We basically exist to make sure the school doesn't get sued for disability discrimination. So as long as they reach out, we'll get started. That was a big change with the process. Before it was like you had to do this, this, or this. Now we're just come to us. We'll work with you. Good question.
Senator Regal.
All right. Actually, speaking on the getting access to things on the website and getting started, I personally had an experience trying to get intake and everything. The form that they sent me to was specifically for new students. And when I tried to reach out via email, I got back a very generic reply email that was like, thank you for speaking with us. And like, here's what you should do. And it was exactly the stuff I'd already done. So I think maybe finding a more clear way for current students to get access to those things rather than having to go down to the office and make an appointment themselves. Because if I hadn't had someone go down with me and was actively prompting me to, I wouldn't have gone down and made an appointment. So maybe if there were more clear ways for current students and like more accessible ways for current students to apply for accessibility resources, I think that might be a good little change to make.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It's a common feedback we'd heard a lot more in the past before when people had to either call or email, and those are the only options. One thing is making language changes. The new student application is meaning new to our office, not new to the university. But we have discussed it. It's currently in a draft and it's not available to the public. Basically a refresh of the entire AR website, where literally you go to it, it asks like your student, faculty, staff, whichever you are, you click it. First thing it asks, do you have an accommodation plan, yes or no? Whatever you click, it'll send you to either the application or to edit a plan if you already have an accommodation plan. That'll also include the ability to, because of the work that we do, we can't use MavConnect because we can't show up on students' profiles, because then it will show that they're a student registered with us, meaning that they're disabled. We use Microsoft Bookings. I started in the office last year, and I'm kind of the techie person, so I've been developing all of this stuff, where a student could go in and actually book the meeting themselves without having to actually go talk to anyone. The downside of that one was just with MavConnect, you can put in a lot more safeguards to make sure people aren't like canceling, rescheduling kind of thing. Bookings doesn't really have that, so I'm trying to figure out how to, for lack of a better word, like game the system of bookings to make it do what we want it to do versus what it's trying to make us do. And so, yeah, that's in the works. We've recently been dealing with some issues related to the testing accommodations and the process with that. So got a lot on the on our plates right now, but yes, that's something that we've been working on. And yeah, you can either email to you said that I got that generic one. We're also working on that.
And Senator Dietrich.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. First of all, it is a basement. It is definitely a basement, and anyone that wants to call it anything other than a basement can come fight me on that. I just wanted to ask about any changes that students might encounter with finals week this year, because you will have students who have now got classes back to back that might have exams in them, and so before, you know, you might schedule your exam a little bit earlier. Is there anything different that students who schedule exams for accessibility resources should know about?
Very good question. And something that, when I said we're working on testing stuff, that's a part of it. Concerns have been raised about how we schedule our, specifically for like space for reduced distraction, private space, or extended time for testing. Finals week, because of the way it was set up, it was a lot easier. A lot of the stuff wasn't like back to back, like you were saying. And we've kind of just been told, just make it work. So what I've been trying to do is be more communicative to students who have the accommodations. So even like on Monday, I sent an email to every student who has testing accommodations saying, remember to schedule your finals as they are. And then I've been reaching out to individuals who have those types of conflicts. Because technically from like the MAV Access, our accessibility portal, on that side, nothing really changed. You still just schedule it. We play with the settings, whatever. There's no limit to that. But then we're having to be more communicative with instructors of like, why is the student starting 30 minutes earlier? It's like, well, they have a class right after. If they're extended time, I push into it. So it's a lot of one-to-one. There are obviously growing pains with that. Growing pains, want to clarify. Because it is new. There also isn't really precedent for us to fall back on and be like, when this happened, because it is new. So we're just kind of taking it as we learn more. But I do know with that change to finals week, I know there's more of an emphasis on more regular assessments, not putting everything on finals week. We have been getting a lot of finals scheduled the week before finals week, or more projects and stuff like that. Students have reached out and said like, not students, instructors themselves have said I switched to like a project final instead of a final test. So there's no need to schedule something. At this point, we have just under 30 students scheduled for finals week, which is kind of worrying me because last finals week in spring we had over 150. We need 8 desks, 9 desks, other nearby classrooms when we can. So yeah, it's like we're working as it comes, but we don't really know. But we'll work with you to make sure it does work out, and we'll advocate on your behalf if an instructor will push back. You're entitled to your accommodations if that's on your plan.
Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming in. Alrighty, that should be the end of our presentations. So now we're going to move into open forum. Is there anyone here for open forum? Seeing none, we will move right into officer reports. So I will yield to President Narala.
Hello, friends. Alrighty. Last week, Speaker Youngberger and I, right after our Senate meeting, were able to provide some comments to the reporter. If you haven't checked out the reporter, you should. We got 2 articles at the front page, so that was a really good highlight. Student government also had a town hall on Thursday. Thank you for everyone who helped out for the event. Senator Hillstead and I were able to attend the campus facilities plan work group, and we talked about a lot of different aspects of the facility strategic plan. We talked about focus on sustainability, on different campus projects, student belongingness at different spaces. We're able to talk about safety, and a lot of other aspects of the facilities strategic plan. They're looking at coming back in February, and we're working on scheduling a focus group conversations with this group, so that'll be really exciting. We now have work study hire students starting at the office, so you'll get to meet a couple of new work study students. They'll be starting at the reception. At student government, I've talked with coordinators, so we'll work with work study hire students to look at expanding on some projects that we have wanted to work on that have been on the backlog. So that'll be really exciting. More interviews are on the way, so fingers crossed we'll get to hire more work study students to help us out. All Greek meeting was yesterday. Speaker Youngberg and I attended and talked with our friends from fraternities and sororities. You might have seen a lot of different fraternities and sororities chapters come in and talk about their chapters. We went in and shared about student government with fraternities and sororities groups. Now, the other piece of my report is something that we should have done quite weeks ago, but we're overdue on this, so I'll get this completed now. The first award is the Senator of the Month for September. This was overdue because we had planned for a senator to get this award, but the senator might have got a promotion. So this is for a senator that was in the running for the award, that put a lot of substantial effort in the last two. Don't worry, that senator isn't getting that award. This award is for a senator that put a substantial amount of effort in the last 2 months to build connections in between student government and other groups. They've built connections with other student organizations, has met with students to talk about what matters with them, has worked extensively with the executive team one-on-one over the last couple of months to support the student groups on the different projects that they've worked on, and also to the senators in this room. I want to hand this award off, the Senator of the Month, September, to Senator Avishu Karki. Now that we're at the end of October, oh yeah, the trophy. There you go.
Hey, don't keep that.
Congratulations. Now for Senator of the Month for October. This award is for a senator that has helped us organize a lot of our events that we've hosted, has stepped up to support our senators. And I'm particularly excited about the projects that they're doing on behalf of their constituents. They've had conversations with different administrators around campus, they're scheduling different meetings, and have got a lot of things planned on their calendar. I'm really excited about the conversations that they've brought up, not just to us, but also to the wider university body and the representation they've shown on behalf of their constituents. So with that, I'm awarding the Senator of the Month for October to Senator Zelmer. Alrighty, with that, I also want to recognize all of the work that you've been doing over the past couple of months. Folks, we're now at the 6-month mark, which means there's 6 more months before your tenure is over. So I want you to start thinking about all of the work that you've been doing. I know a lot of you have come up to us to talk about your projects, your initiatives, some of the meetings that you've planned. As I meet your academic deans and different directors of different departments that you've talked with, I really like to talk about projects that you're working on. You might have seen me talk with a couple of deans that were in this room right before we started our joint committee meeting. I really enjoyed talking with them about the different projects that you're all working on. So I wanna give a kudos to all of you for all of the work that you're doing. And as we are 6 months away from April, I wanted to start thinking about the work that you want to do for your constituents and the legacy that you guys want to leave behind at the end of the year. Now, a couple of things that are coming up. AdCon this weekend, I know a lot of you are joining us for advocacy conference. I'll be sharing out some more travel logistics as we go into the week. And we'll be traveling to AdCon on Saturday and we'll all be back on Sunday. Meet and Confer is on the 7th. To all of you who are on the Meet and Confer team, I'll be sending out a text message, but also put that on your calendars. If there's anything, there are more meetings coming up. I know we just scheduled coffee and conversation, so more information about that will be coming up with the provost. We have some of our meetings going on. If you have any questions or anything that you'd like to share with us, definitely feel free to stop by the office or shoot us a text or an email. But with that, I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for President Narala, Senator Dietrich?
So technically, this is more of a question for Vice President Jay, but because they are not here, it's going to you. Vice President Jay had mentioned that we were gonna do a second when to meet for like the party thing that we won, but I never saw that anywhere.
I believe we didn't send it out before she went. The last discussion that we had about it was we would, since most of you are available on Tuesday, we wanna do it the next Tuesday, but we haven't finalized it.
Got it.
So we're not in any rush on hosting it anytime soon. We just need to send out a date to our friends at Student Activities so they can plan that accordingly. But that's on the works on the back end. Thanks for the question.
Any other questions? Already seeing none, and Vice President Jay is out. It's my turn. Cool. So usually Vice President Jay gives updates on any vacancies. So since she's not here, I will give updates on vacancies. We've had 2 resignations this week, so one being literally like maybe like 4 hours ago. So with that, there are 2 vacancies for residential life, 1 for off-campus, 2 for allied health and nursing, 1 for College of Business, 1 for College of Humanities and Social Sciences, 1 for College of Science, Engineering and Technology, and 1 for Graduate Studies. So that's kind of the vacancies right now. The residential life will stay open since we already had 1 that was open. And then the off-campus one can start elections next week after I announce it again. So just so you're all aware, we'll have that election next week. So if there's anyone for that. So definitely be reaching out to anyone who might like fit this constituency, who you think would be a really good fit for student government. As you can see, like our table is starting to get a little bit smaller, but if you know anyone who'd be a good fit, have them either reach out to myself, to President Narala, Vice President Jay. We'd be more than willing to have conversations with them, just so then they can make sure that they have the time to like dedicate to like committee or meetings, and then especially with spring, because there's a lot coming up in spring. Yeah, secondly, I don't actually have like a whole lot, but I think I'm gonna start now like kind of posting like the agenda and like reminders on the whiteboard, kind of what I did this week. I hope that's kind of like helpful. So if you do come into the office, you can get like a preview of what's to come. And then having those reminders there, I'll update the vacancies on there as well, just so then you don't see them every Wednesday, so you can see them throughout the week. And then office hours, that's right. Make sure that you are tracking your office hours in Teams. You should all have access to that. So if you go to the Senate channel files, there is an office hours folder. So make sure you take a look at that and keep up to date with the office hours, because the office hours will help determine your senator pay at the end of the semester. So if you aren't fulfilling your office hours, that will be a factor in whether or not you get your senator pay. So just make sure to do that. If you have any questions with that, you can definitely come ask me and we can get things sorted out, taken care of. But we'll be talking about that very shortly. Cool. Are there any questions for me? Cool. I do have a quick question for our chair of academic affairs, actually. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw this to you on the spot, but I have gotten some questions about early registration. And since that resolution passed, is that taking effect this semester or next, or for?
I
You know.
believe not this semester, I think next academic year.
Okay, perfect. I was just getting questions about that and I wanna make sure I'm giving folks the correct information. Cool. So sorry, y'all. Early registration will be hopefully next academic year, unfortunately. All right. If there's no questions for me, then we are going to move into Dean of the Day, and it is going to be Dr. Budge, who's the interim executive director for the School of Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources. So let's give him a hand.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I have been here a number of times in the past in my past roles as either Associate Dean or the Acting Dean for the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology. Then Senator Nurala, now President Nurala. We had some great conversations over multiple years as to various initiatives in the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology. I appreciate the ongoing effort made by all of the senators around the table here today, so thank you. Following up on the earlier conversation, I am part of that Art of Equity team that Dr. Berry presented a little bit about. Please come with ideas, come with thoughts relative to the session that they'll have in a few weeks. We very much are interested in what is working and what is not working relative to the student perspective. So please come prepared for that visit with, especially, they mentioned the 10 pilot courses that had been addressed over the past 3 years or so. 7 of those 10 were from my college. I still claim Science, Engineering, Technology is my own. And some of you have seen some of the benefits, I hope, of some of the efforts made in some of those courses, specifically chemistry, math, biology are the 3 primary departments that have been involved there. We hope that significant efforts have been made and some measured success has been experienced, but we want to continue to grow that. And that's the next step, is to see what additional programs, what additional courses need some specific intentional effort relative to how we can make courses more equitable and have better success for our students. So please come ready for those conversations, and I look forward to hearing the results of that conversation. But in my official role today, I guess, in this interim executive director for the School of Applied Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources, I know a few of you here were at the big launch event here 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks Monday, I guess, where we officially announced the School of Applied Agriculture to the general community. Great opportunity to see a lot of folks from the region, the state, and other capacities that we're here to celebrate that opportunity. This has been a long time coming. There's been conversations for a number of years. I know with College of Business, College of Science, Engineering, Technology, other places, to really identify a way that we can promote and grow the agricultural related programs and food and natural resource programs within our campus community, and identify where the gaps are, where there are needs that exist that we maybe haven't addressed. So you mentioned earlier the reporter. Had a great conversation with Emma Johnson. That was one of those front page things about 3 weeks ago when the school was announced. Really good conversation and really good piece that I appreciate relative to why we have this school. And it really is to be able to promote what we do have and what we're hoping to have relative to some of the ag and food related programs at the university and the demands regionally. So just as a quick update for those that were not able to be there, the school is basically trying to make a collaboration to break down the silos of the past relative to a lot of those programs that have associations with the agricultural industry and food and natural resource industries. Because we tend to be siloed. We tend to do our own thing and not really share what the good things are that are happening and what the region really is expecting of us. So it is a chance to have a common ground. The faculty, the students that are all within those respective programs that are already in existence and those that will be developed in the near future, they'll continue to have homes in the College of Business for the agribusiness and food innovation majors, the agricultural science and the agronomy students that are effectively in the biology, Department of Biology within Science, Engineering, Technology. Some of the new programs that we're hoping to develop, they'll continue to be within those colleges, but we're hoping that the school can be kind of an intertwined opportunity to collaborate between different schools, different programs, different groups. That includes students alike. So the Ag Today Club is a great example. I know that this group has been very supportive of the Ag Today group. They have students from across campus, literally, I think in every college represented, every academic college represented. In this fun group that I met with that last Monday night, a week ago Monday, had a great guest speaker come in. And it is a collaborative opportunity to interchange and to, in an agricultural sense, cross-pollinate, right, with the opportunities that are out there from a student perspective. So excited to see how that rolls out. We do have a lot of great collaboration already with the faculty that are associated with the Ag, Food, and Natural Resources Affinity Group. So they have already had some collaborations over the past 5 or 6 years since that group was developed. I'm actually here today instead of next week. I switched with Dr. Marincic from the Allied Health and Nursing, because next week I will be with a number of the agribusiness students at the Agri-Growth Summit held at Minneapolis Convention Center. So excited to get some of those interactions with some of the students that I may not have otherwise had access to as a College of Science, Engineering, and Technology faculty member or administrator. To that end, with this group specifically, I know many of you are representing specific colleges, right? The colleges, the 5 academic colleges, whether it's residential life, otherwise. I don't have a specific senator, which means I can have all of you, right? I hope to have all of your ears. If any of you have things that you want to bring to me in my director role for the School of Agriculture, Applied Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources, please come visit with me. I'm currently in the same office I had been in my associate dean role, so Trafton North. I know Trafton is kind of tough to make your way through occasionally, but feel free, reach out. I'm happy to hear whatever questions you've got, concerns you've got, especially as we're trying to consider what new opportunities may exist, whether it be curricular things to address, other things, co-curricular activities. I want to hear that. And again, I don't have a specific ag-related senator, which is fine. I don't need one necessarily because I think I have all of you collectively, and I'm hoping to make that connection. So please come visit with me. As President Narala would tell you, I hope I'm pretty easy to work with and fun to work with, so I'm happy to address any of your needs to the best that I can in my role, but looking forward to seeing the school roll forward. I think that was really all that I wanted to make sure that you're aware of. The school is a new idea, a new innovation. The president was excited. We were talking a little bit as he came in earlier about that opportunity for collaboration and interconnection, which again has been something that we've lacked as a campus in some ways. For a lot of the programs, we're hoping to really make some of those connections across the campus. So thank you for all the work you're doing. I know it's not a very well, it's not a paid position per se. You're not getting a lot out of it from a financial standpoint. You're not getting a lot out of it apart from that time investment. But we do appreciate all that you're doing on behalf of the student body at whole. So thank you for what you're doing. Certainly open to any questions or thoughts you've got before I step down.
Senator Rigo.
Hi, I was wondering, because this is a relatively new college, I was wondering if there were any plans to, I don't know a better word, but to expand out to other colleges in the Minnesota state system, especially sort of like smaller community colleges. I know I'm from up north. I did a lot of PSEO with Minnesota North College.
Okay.
I feel like there would be success with implementing agricultural-based programming up there. Do you know if there are any plans to sort of expand this out into the other Minnesota state colleges?
Great question, and I'm glad you brought that up because I had written it down and didn't read my notes well enough. We have a partnership already with South Central College. So the agronomy program that I mentioned is already, you think of a transfer partnership as carved as a kind of a one-directional thing, right? Student will start at South Central or somewhere else for a couple of years and then come to Mankato. This is actually set up so that students that start at Mankato will actually be taking courses at South Central for some of the courses and some of the programs that they have a very, very strong program already because they have had agriculture for decades and we're just kind of getting it up off the ground. So we'll have Mankato students that are taking courses at South Central for the agronomy degree, while students that start at South Central in their agribusiness and ag programs will come our direction as well. So it's bi-directional, going both directions. We'll have Mankato students at South Central, vice versa, over the next few years. I had just last week literally conversations with both Riverland Community College and Minnesota West, and hoping to have conversations with Ridgewater Community College in the near term as well. We've already had some conversations with Marshall, Southwest Minnesota State University. So there are a lot of interactions in the works, because some of them are already doing things that we won't do and can't do, where we would hope that make that experience available to more of the students. So absolutely, yes, conversations are starting. Minnesota North hasn't been part of it yet, but not to say that we can't, because I know that they've got some opportunities as well. So absolutely looking forward to having some of those additional conversations. We have it set up for the agronomy degree as that AAS, Associate of Applied Science, feeding into our Bachelor of Applied Science in Agronomy. I'm hoping to do very much the same with Riverland, with Ridgewater, with some of the other programs, so that we have a very clear pipeline to bring students to our campus. Thank you for the question.
Senator Livingston.
Hi, thanks for being here. I'm from South Dakota, so as you know, I know it's a very big agriculture industry. So I know the universities there have, especially South Dakota State, pretty good agriculture.
Brings a lot of students from Minnesota to them. Yes, absolutely.
Sure. And I appreciate us expanding up into agriculture and just the importance it brings and all that. So I just want to ask you, what kind of partnerships are you guys doing with, like, even out-of-state universities or agriculture companies or farmers, like kind of people in the field, I guess?
Yep, absolutely. So I'll break that into two parts. First side with the really the more boots on the ground folks. So the producers, the processors, other groups, they have been very excited. It's been a really fun response to see a lot of the press and a lot of the pings that I've been getting relative to, hey, we're excited to see that you've got something fired up in Mankato. So how can we partner? So CHS, General Mills, other very well-known groups that are anxious to get on board and to be part of our program. So absolutely, that is just getting rolling. We've had conversations in the recent past, but now we actually have some boots to stand on, literally. Relative to some of the other partnerships, other academic partnerships, I'm actually traveling down to Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, in about 2 weeks, a week before Thanksgiving. So yeah, 2 weeks out. Wow, quick. To visit with them. They've had agriculture programs for about 50 plus years, but they are similar to us. They're situated right between 3 regional land grant institutions that are very much ag centric. Here they are in the middle, doing what they do, and they do it well, and they bring in a lot of students. We're hoping to be able to mirror model what they do to be able to succeed, because again, they're right in the middle of some very large institutions that have been around for more than decades, centuries almost, since the late 1800s, early 1900s. We're in a very similar situation. So we're having to bring students back that are going to South Dakota State, that are going to the University of Minnesota, that are going to Iowa State. How can we make our name, and how can we be different? And we were very intentional in setting up that name of School of Applied Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources. That applied side is what will distinguish us from the land grants that do some of the more theoretical a lot of the time, not necessarily as much of the application. So looking forward to hopefully filling that niche. And again, that trip, along with a couple others that I have planned to some regional ag programs, to see what are they doing really well that we might model, what are the lessons have they learned that we want to avoid, and that type of an opportunity. So great question.
Senator Moore.
Hi. So also from a very agricultural state, not one of the ones up here in Oklahoma, but I know agriculture can sometimes have a reputation of being how do I phrase this, a bit more like set in the ways, let's say. Are there any specific initiatives or things to sort of make sure it's people from different backgrounds and different groups can kind of comfortably be a part of this?
Absolutely. And that has been I don't want to say a concern, a reality from the start, is that mainline agriculture is white dominant and other opportunities. But the reality is that we do need to look at new populations, new opportunities to first generation farmers, non-American by descent, folks that are trying to raise crops that we're not familiar with, that aren't grown. We have the soybeans and corn, but there are other crops from other countries, other nations that would like to be grown here more locally. So there's a number of groups that we have reached out to and will continue to reach out to that were invited to our launch event, several of which came. I'm trying to remember the name of a couple of the groups. Forever Green is one of them that does focus exclusively on underrepresented populations. as far as farming, bringing opportunities for those groups. So absolutely is on the agenda. The position description for the position that I'm currently filling in the interim role definitely looks at the diversity side, diversity, equity, inclusion as far as the communities that we're addressing relative to the agricultural development. So I'm looking forward to having some. I'm not as familiar with some of those groups as I need to be, and will become more familiar with, but that is definitely a part of the opportunity for us. So looking forward to that. Great point, and definitely noted. So thank you.
Any other questions? I actually have a question, and I'm gonna ask one because I can't. So I actually grew up in Waseca, so right down the road, and there's the University of Minnesota
Extension.
Extension, the Southern Research and Outreach Center. Has the school looked into partnering with them to help expand those opportunities?
Yep, so the AURI is right there, and we have had a number of, actually some good affiliations through the years. When I was in the science, engineering, technology world, we went out, we visited their site, we've had some collaborative projects in the past. I'm meeting actually next week before the AgriGrowth seminar with some folks at the University of Minnesota, so on the St. Paul campus, to have some conversations. The president and provost both have a connection to the current president at the University of Wisconsin, River Falls, happens to be a University of Minnesota graduate, years past, and he has been in an agricultural track and is hoping to connect us with the University of Minnesota as well. So we've got multiple ways that we're hoping to fit in, not as a competitor, but as a complement to the University of Minnesota and their program. So. One question that hasn't come up is, why is a civil engineer in this role of School of Ag director? And my get around is, I grew up on an Angus beef farm and spent my early years throwing hay and chasing cows and that type of thing. So I do have a passion for the farm scene, farm kid myself. So looking forward to getting back literally in my cowboy boots and cowboy hat to some extent, but pushing the boundaries. As mentioned, there are some new and needed, very much required opportunities for us to broaden that traditional sense of what agriculture is and make it more current to the world demands. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few things. Again, please reach out, touch base with me if any questions come up. Happy to represent again as needed relative to the new school. So thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. We are going to move into senator reports, and if y'all want to try to keep them brief, you can. That's recommended. Sorry. So Senator Smith is not here today, so we have Senator Maba up first. You can either give it from your seat or you can go up to the podium. I don't have a preference, whatever you prefer. Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Priska Maba, and I'm one of the off-campus senators. I was working on two projects I've been working on two projects, and both were either mentioned last semester or it's a continuation of something that was started last semester. The first one was working on options to make the MBA program available to international students.
We've got that noise out there today, so it might be helpful.
Okay. If it's easier, I can just stand there, I don't mind. I just
Muted, so.
Hi. Oh, okay. So as I was saying, I've been working on two projects this semester. The first one was rendering the MBA program accessible to international students. I had come up with a list of 8 alternatives that could be helpful for international students that I cannot find right now because I didn't know I would be going first. But so I had sent them to Director Schultz, who is the MBA director, MBA program director. She had a hard time talking with the dean, but then last week she told me that the Minnesota Office of Higher Education, which is basically the institution to which online programs have to report, that's what she told me, I think, is looking into that. And so even though they have those options, they're looking forward to what the institution would say, so that they can implement whatever they will opt to do for international students. So they start. I'm still in talk with her to see what will happen. And then the second project was the creation of a Francophone Student Association, and we had started it with Senator Maiga as well as ex-Senator Bonga last semester. The initiative was basically to create a sort of networking association for students who either speak French, are learning French, or are from a Francophone background or origin, something of that sort. We have already created the association, and we're currently working on the first events. Among the things that we are planning on doing, it would be gathering like French-speaking students, whatever, and basically either meeting with professionals around the Minnesota or in the state so that we can just network. I've already reached out to, and in French it would be Alliance Française, which it would be like the Francophone Alliance of St. Paul and Minneapolis. And we're looking into other organizations, but basically it's just to, and I don't know if you remember, but when I losing my English. When I first started, I had said that I was joining the organization to help students get out of their apartment house, whatever, and just get more involved. But we've noticed that Francophone students tend not to do that. So we're hoping that by creating an association where they will have it would be easier for them to gather, because maybe they don't feel comfortable speaking English, they can speak French, and then they will be able to meet professionals in whatever field they're interested in that are also speaking French. Is where they can make connections and also learn about whatever opportunities they can apply for or like should be looking at. We are also looking at having some alumni come back, especially those who speak French again. I am currently in talks with a friend of mine who is working at Deloitte. I know that our president told me 2 days ago that it was talks with three other alumni to have them come back. But basically, for our first events, we're planning on either having a simple introductory event where we'll talk everything Francophone in the university, just to make people aware of the other communities or Francophone communities on campus, and like just let ourselves known. This way they could know who to reach out to. Or we would have like a panel with professionals again, who would just basically answer questions, and hopefully that would be a great opportunity to network for students. I'm done.
Are there any questions for Senator Maba? Any questions? Yes, Senator Maiga.
Not really a question, but just wanted to mention that the Francophone Association is open to all students, like you don't have to be speaking French to join.
Thank you. Anything else? Already seeing none, we'll move on. No, we'll clap. We'll move on to Senator Franzen. Are you gonna go up to the podium?
Hey guys, I'm Tyler Franson, the Senator for College of Allied Health and Nursing, and I'm working on a joint project with Senator Zelmer to have CPR or the CAs in the res halls obtain their CPR certification and training. Oh, we have a meeting on Friday with the Res Life, Student Health Services, and Security to try and nail this down as quickly as possible, and plan to meet with the Allied Health Dean to discuss training and product availability. We also, including CPR, we hope to get the CA's training in Narcan as well, in case of overdose, because the way the process works right now is the CA gets a call that a student in the res halls needs medical attention, and then they call security or the hall director, and then they call the ambulance. The CA cannot directly call the ambulance or medical services, so we're trying to completely eliminate that factor and try to get the student help as soon as possible. We've talked to our constituency about input and me personally, I have gone through CPR certification. It's not that hard. Doesn't cost that much either. And we have researched other states and universities that have this requirement, and the studies show that the rate of help is a lot higher. They're able to quickly provide medical attention when needed. So that's pretty much it for right now.
Any questions for Senator Franson? Any questions? I see none. Good job. Up next, I have Senator Ponte.
Hey everyone, I'm Milan and I'm a College of Business senator. And for my senator project, I had initially planned to work on a project to initiate an internship program for College of Business students. But upon my meeting with various people, deans and others, I came to a conclusion this project being too broad to complete in one academic year. So I am open to work on this, on the internship project, if any senators would agree to work on this project in the next academic year, considering that I won't be able to be a senator because I'll be graduating. And if someone is not, if someone does not, I'm sorry. If I cannot do the project, I'll be switching my focus to a different project, which is a research program for College of Business students, where they collaborate with faculty members. And as of now, I have created a list of faculty members in College of Business who are actively conducting research. And I still have to meet with Dean Bach about my new project. So that's where I am right now. Thank you. And I stand for questions if you guys have any.
Are there any questions? Any questions? All right, seeing none. Okay, I'm actually gonna cut Senator Zelmer off and let John make an announcement before he has to leave.
Sorry, I have to head off to another meeting real quick. So just a real quick update for you on the Election Commission. The Election Commission has had its initial meeting. In this room, we have Senator Karki, who's serving on the Election Commission. Just an update for that meeting. Vice President Jay was selected as the Chief Election Commissioner, so once she's back, we'll touch base. But our next meeting is Tuesday. That is when this group is going to finalize the election rules for the next cycle, which will take place in the spring semester. So if there's any of you who have suggestions about the election rules, please look at the student government website, look at the rules that are on there. And then if you have any suggestions about the rules for changes, send them to Senator Karki. I'm going to delegate that to her right now since she's the one in the room who's on the commission. And those will be discussed by the commission. That commission serves independently of the Senate. So the rules they present to you are not up for debate or vote by the Senate. They've been approved by that group and they will be the rules that are in effect for the election cycle. So that's why it's important to make sure that a commissioner gets any of the rule changes that you would suggest. So please send those to her. And then they will present those rules to you next week. So everything's on target to happen as we had planned. And so if there's anything, just send that to Senator Karki and we'll have that discussed. So we could still use one more commissioner after the next meeting. Pretty much we're going to be set. We won't be doing any more, but we could use up to one more if there is interest. That's all I have.
Thank you, John.
Oh, and there's a charger plugged into this wall if it belongs to anybody. I don't know if it does.
What time is the meeting on Tuesday?
1:30.
1:30? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Just another comment. Can I?
Sure.
If you are serving in elections commission, you won't be able to run next year. Just so you know.
Alrighty, so now back to our previously scheduled agenda. Senator Zelmer, you can get your report.
Be sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nolan. I'm a residential life senator. So I've been doing a couple things. Tyler spoke a little bit on this. I'm just gonna add a couple more points. So he had mentioned that like other states have this in place, like New York and California. I've seen where it's actually a state law. And the kind of information that I've seen is that they have a lot higher of overdose rates than Minnesota does. And I'm hoping to push towards, it shouldn't be that we have to have this amount of overdose rates and deaths that we need to apply this law, but it should be a law in the first place. So that's one of those. I'm also working on a senator project with Senator Hillstead on getting the rule changed for electric scooters and electric bikes in res halls, since they're not currently allowed to be brought into res halls, and also getting storage places, secure storage places in those buildings and also in the CSU for people to store their scooters and bikes. So that's kind of what we've been working on. We've been looking at what other universities and states have for that. I am also working on another project. I'm looking at the advising for freshmen. I know for me, and I know in other colleges where you can't choose your own advisor, you're put into the advising team automatically, and you can't choose your own advisor in your department. And I feel like that's kind of hard for me, especially where I'm expected to have an internship after my freshman year, to plan out that and how it's going to go with my schooling. So I'm also looking at that. If you guys have any information or recommendations, please reach out. And then I'm also on the Legislative Affairs Committee, and we're starting to look at the Constitution and bylaws. If you have any recommendations, feel free to reach out. And then I am also the chairperson of the Ethics and Standards. I just reached out to all of them to find out some meeting times. So yeah, that's about kind of all I've been working on. Any questions?
Any questions for Senator Zelmer?
No, not a question, but a comment.
Comment? Yeah, Senator Karki.
You mentioned about the advisor changing. I think it is possible through the portal where you are able to change majors.
I had tried. So I tried this for construction management, going through the major button and then trying to change it. And I got an email back stating that as a freshman, I'm not allowed to choose my own advisor until my sophomore year.
Got it.
Anything else?
Senator Dietrich?
As far as the advising goes, have you reached out at all to, I believe her name is Sarah Granberg Rademacher before?
Yes, I sent her an email, and then I also sent Kenneth Adams, who is the CSET advising director.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you. Alrighty, so that concludes our senator report. So now we will move into vacancies. Is there anyone here for senator for residential life? Anyone, no, we can't do off campus. Anyone for College of Allied Health and Nursing? Anyone for College of Business? Anyone for College of Humanities and Social Sciences? Anyone for College of Science, Engineering and Technology? And then anyone here for graduate studies? If so, you can come up to the podium. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna kind of give you the little spiel on how this is going to go. So you will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement, and then that will be followed by any questions that any of the senators may have for you. And then after questions, then you'll have a 2-minute closing statement, and then we're gonna go into discussion. So if you're ready, you can start with your opening statement whenever you're ready.
Cool. Hi y'all, thanks for having me. My name is Manuel Reyes, you can call me Manny. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm running for Graduate Studies Senator. So a few things about me is I got my BS in Political Science, my MA in Communications. Now I'm at the graduate school getting my Master of Fine Arts in Speech and Debate. So I hope to be able to use my connections in graduate school that I have with the Department of English, the Department of GWS and Communication, amongst other graduate schools to kind of really gauge what the constituency needs. I'm currently the graduate representative for the planning submeet, which I am honored, even though I'm not formally part of student government.
I think that my lens in the MFA and working with speech and debate gives me a unique idea for advocacy and doing advocacy projects or summarizing constituents' needs in an effective manner and portraying that to the rest of y'all or the rest of whatever needs to be done. I hope that I am able to bring something to the table for graduate students and address some of the big problems that are facing them to hopefully better it for the future students that hope to attend Minnesota State and Cato. Thanks.
Thank you. So now we will go into questions. So as you all know, if you have any questions, raise your placard. And we have a first question by Senator Riggle.
Hi. So in your application, it says you previously went to school in Missouri. I was wondering if there's anything that you saw from the universities that you've previously attended, especially the ones out of state, that you are hoping to implement here at Minnesota State University Mankato.
I think that's a great question. So I think it's two parts, really. I think one, I really hope to implement things that I was not able to see in Missouri specifically. Minnesota has the privilege of being a very diverse area, especially at this institution. I come from an institution where, especially people of color, were few and far between. So a lot of initiatives that I see coming out of student government, coming from higher administration, I applaud because I wish this was able to be more a universal thing. So I hope to continue with the DEI, the Equity 2030, and all of those things. I hope to continue it and broaden the horizons in places that maybe we haven't considered. The second part of the question is, I think I come from the University of Central Missouri. It's a very small state school, much smaller than Mankato. I would say probably about a third of the size, if not a quarter. So they had a lot of unique opportunities to work with a lot of local residents and find things that are mutually beneficial. It was really interesting to hear the agriculture college come into effect because rural Missouri, no surprise, has a lot of people interested in agriculture. So they were able to partner with local farmers, even people who aren't part of big institutions to kind of better their community. So hopefully I'll be able to bring some of that to the table, but also, yeah. Thank you.
Senator Colleran.
Yeah, so as academic senator, you have to go to the academic affairs committee meetings. So we meet every Wednesday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Would you be able to make those meetings?
Yes, I'm like, whenever I was looking at the position, I was hoping that the time constraints, being a graduate student is a little time crunch. But yeah, I'm like, the only thing I have is I have to leave by like 5:55, so I'll be good.
And Senator Hillstead.
So I see that you said your biggest concerns is ensuring that domestic and international graduate students have the proper resources to prioritize their mental health. And what steps would you take in order to achieve those, make sure those resources are available?
I think that's a great question. I think the first and foremost is just assessing the need for mental health resources for graduate students. I had a fellow colleague who actually did their thesis last semester about the accessibility of mental health for international students who are coming for graduate school, and it's very much of a culture shock compared to being a TA for the first time and having to teach something like I do, like a public speaking, and having to just be thrown in there without proper training, without proper resources to help throughout the semester. So I think first is assessing the need from the students who are affected the most, and then going from there, like what would be the best course of action, whether that be support groups, whether that be more institutionalized areas to help have those support systems for the students if they need/want to be able to have them there. So I think starting from the ground up, especially in an instance like this, is the best way to tackle the problem.
Are there any more questions? Alrighty, seeing none, you can have your next 2 minutes for a closing statement.
I just want to say that once again, thank you for having me here. This is my second of 3 years of a program. So after taking my first year and being accustomed to a brand new state, a brand new environment, I really applaud a lot of the work that student government, but also like the institution as a whole has done. And I just hope that I will get the opportunity to continue that great work and hopefully leave a legacy that we all hope for that outlasts us at our time in this institution.
So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. So now we're gonna go into like some discussion, so you can either choose to stay in the room and go back and sit down, or you can choose to leave the room. It's 100% up to you, and then we're just gonna go into some discussion.
Do you have like class in like 15 minutes? Or
We'll get this done really quick.
Sounds good.
Yes. Alrighty, are there any points of discussion? Senator Karki?
I think that was a great candidacy, especially what we were looking for, specific ideas on how to help the graduate school, and I think we saw that.
Senator Zellmer?
I enjoy the dedication to constituency and working with the other grad students to get more involvement and better training.
Senator Collin?
I yield to John C. I think he seems like a very confident candidate. I'm personally gonna vote yes.
Senator Moore?
If anyone has like any big negative things, I think we should vote now, because a lot of people have to leave.
Motion to call to question. Okay, there's a motion, there's a second. Okay, we're gonna go into voting, so please take out a piece of paper and write yes, no, or abstain, and I will come collect them. If you're on Zoom, please send a message in the chat. Thank you.
Jeez. Jeez.
We're not done with the meeting yet, but I understand some people have class.
Apologize for the noise today, although, we're setting up for the haunted takeover, so they have work to do, and I've tried to keep the groups within reason, but it's a little louder than any of us like, so maybe next year I'll try to have to stay out of this hall. This is fine.
You're good for it. Hey.
You like what I said, I guess.
It's the festive season.
Just a second.
Alright, if you wanna come back up to the podium.
So these are not 18.
Alrighty, so we have had an election. So, yes, we can clap. Alrighty. So I am actually just gonna have you repeat after me. If you can hold up your right hand and then just repeat after me. I state your name,
I'm
Manuel Arias.
do hereby swear
do hereby swear
to represent, support, and serve
to represent, support, and serve
the students of Minnesota State University, Mankato,
the students of University of
Minnesota State, Mankato.
in student life and academic needs,
in student life and academic needs,
and to uphold the mission, constitution, and bylaws
to uphold the mission, constitution, and bylaws
of the student government.
of the student government.
I so affirm.
I so
affirm.
Yay! Alrighty, since you have to go to class, usually we'd have you come take a seat, but since you have to go to class, we will see you next week at 4 p.m.
Sounds great.
Alrighty. Cool. And 3 p.m. for committee. Sorry. Alrighty. We'll move into new business. There is no new business, so we're gonna go to old business and discuss the Lot 22 free parking extension resolution. And I'm going to turn it over to Senator Karki.
Okay, I have a presentation. I'll try to make it really, really quick, but I just have a couple of things I wanted to make sure I highlight.
I will try to keep it really quick.
If you wanna get the talking points in.
Okay. While we get the presentation set up, this is about the resolution that was introduced here last week about keeping Lot 22 South free, because as of right now, it is free until November 1st, and then it returns back to being a paid lot. And we had a very good discussion, I think, last week, and there were a couple of really good concerns that were brought up. So I just wanted to take some time to address them before we go into voting for the resolution.
Should be up in 1 second. And it's up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, I just want to take a couple of minutes here to explain why this resolution came into place, why this was not came into place yet, why this was introduced, and why I am proposing this to be voted upon here right now. Because last week when we presented this resolution, we kind of talked about it in brief, but I would just like to give a little bit of background over that. So first, let's take a look at this campus parking layout, and the area that is circled is what we are going to zoom in and talk a little bit about. So this area right now, next slide please, is just across of CVS and right beside Quick Trip. It is also close to the, very close to the Dome and the current free lot, which is lot 23. Some of the numbers that are associated with this parking lot. Currently, we only have two free parking options across campus, which is lot 23 with 436 stalls, and lot 22 South, which is the striped one over there with 180 stalls until November 1st. And after November 1st, lot 22 South is set to convert back into a paid orange permit lot. So this would leave lot 23 as the only free lot. So this has been an arrangement for a couple of years now, and since 2022, student government has been having this discussion, so it's not a new discussion, to continue to keep lot 22 South free even after November 1st. So going to the next slide, I am asking for your support in this resolution because there have been a lot of prior agreements with transportation, and this is trying to keep separate from all of that. Those agreements are still being respected and kept in place, but we believe that it's essential to keep having these dialogues, keep making sure that student demands are being represented. So I just want to emphasize that this resolution is a recommendation. It is not a mandate to keep lot 22 South free. And by keeping this free, I think we can definitely better accommodate the needs of the student community, campus community, including both faculty and staff who have been making use of this resource. Next slide. We heard a lot of concerns about this in the last meeting, so I'll just try to go over some of the numbers we talked about to communicate why this resolution and why this recommendation makes sense as we look at these numbers as well. So this resolution will not be impacting permit sales or revenue as we look at the numbers that will be presented as of now. And our proposal rather focuses on utilizing the underused spaces that are already present in this parking lots. And I will expand a little on this as I kind of go into the next slides and look at the revenues from these as well. The total number of stalls currently in the orange paid lot is 610 with 266 stalls in lot 21 South, 164 stalls in lot 22 North, and this is excluding the brown lease that you see that is divided up there, and 180 stalls in the lot 22 South, which is effective after November 1st. Next slide. If I am speaking too fast, please let me know because I'm trying to make this quick. But the question that I kind of want to pose with these numbers are whether these spaces are being used to their full potential. Before getting to all that, let's just look at a couple of the numbers we have here. So fall only permits for the orange lot or the orange permit right now was $35, and for the academic year it is $70. I say was because we are almost over with the fall semester as of right now. And last year, orange permit sales brought in $28,315 in revenue. And this year to date, they've generated $27,965. And the demand for these permits remains steady, and it kind of shows a pattern. So I just want to argue that maintaining Lot 22 South as free will not be affecting this revenue stream. So in other words, we have enough paid stalls under Orange 2 or under Orange Lot without converting Lot 22 South back to paid to accommodate for the demands. And yet these permits, these permits have been generating revenue. They will be continuing to generate a revenue. But what I want to emphasize that this shouldn't be affected by this recommendation and this proposal. This revenue is generated by orange permits as a whole. But orange permits are not just Lot 22 South. It also includes Lot 21 South with the 266 stalls and Lot 22 North with the 164 stalls. So this resolution is based on the fact that these paid lots are enough to accommodate for orange permits that are being bought and the pattern that we are seeing with people buying that historically and as of right now as well. So this is the primary reason that we are recommending Lot 22 South to remain free to make it, to make sure that it is being used to its full potential. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is kind of a little visual I put in on how many stalls are being unused right now. And I will not spend a lot of time in this. I'll just go to the next slide where we kind of see how this comes into play. So you saw that yellow part in the slide before. Those are the lots that are not being utilized. And that yellow is the same yellow that is represented here. So right now we have a demand of 877 free registrations. So these are people who have registered for free parking so far just in this semester. And among them, there are 810 students and 67 faculties. And with Lot 23 being south, we are accommodating for 436 of those, which is not even half. But if we keep Lot 22 South free and add up those 120, we are meeting at least a third of the demand that is being presented by students who want free parking and staff. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to address some of the concerns that were brought up, I just want to be clear once again that this resolution does not interfere with the numbers or the compromises that were agreed upon previously. It actually respects the agreements very much made with the parking committee, and we acknowledge that any fee adjustments are beyond the scope of this proposal within Senate as of right now. And this recommendation is simply advocating for the re-evaluation of Lot 22 South to better serve our campus community's needs. We need the Senate's endorsement to present this as a stronger student voice in the committee meeting, and that is why we are asking you to vote yes for it. And as we said before, both students and employees have relied on this arrangement. The current number is 810 students and 67 employees requests. And we talked about how subsidies are a big part of college and this lot as well. I completely agree with that. Yes, free parking in Lot 23 and as we ask in Lot 22 South may be partly funded by those who buy permits for Orange Lot or other lots. And it is greatly appreciated, but that is not an unusual arrangement in a university setting. It is important to remember that a lot of things are subsidized within our university arrangements, and this is a very important puzzle piece to any inclusive campus environment. So there are many things on campus that work this way. Just to mention a few, student fees help support resources like the bus or the gym, or activities across campus, but not everyone uses them. So this small subsidy, if it helps create a fairer and a more welcoming environment where financial limitations are not stopping people from having a comfortable college experience, then I think it should be considered and voted upon as we go. And I have one last slide. Thank you. So we have talked a lot about, and we have heard a lot from different partners in campus today as well. Equity and inclusiveness is something we hear very often, and we have heard very often in this meeting as well. So this is just an effort for parking policies to reflect these values and as well, and especially when resources like those on Orange Lot can help to do that. So I just ask you guys to consider that with the student demands being so high for this, we consider that we represent those voices well by endorsing this resolution and making that a stronger voice in the Parking and Transportation Committee meeting. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions? Senator Livingston.
I'm not familiar with the compromise you guys talked about. Could you go a little deeper into that?
I can send you more details on that just because I don't want to take a lot of the time and because I don't think it's too related with the resolution that I'm making. But it is more so about raising parking prices, or sorry, raising permit prices and ticket prices. But I think President Nirola can add a little more on that too.
Like Senator Karki mentioned, it's a little different, but the negotiations last year involved a couple of different elements, an increase to the permit rates, an increase to the tickets issued. There were other components interwoven into it, which said no tickets for parking mishaps the first week of classes, so students would have the opportunity to make corrections if they were parking in the wrong spots. And a continuation of the free lot at lot 23. So those were some of the components that were woven into the agreement when we say the agreement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alrighty, seeing none, thank you. Now we will be moving into any points of discussion. Are there any points of discussion? Senator Zelmer?
After looking over it, and thank you for the presentation, I like the thought of having that free lot, especially for students who, with the permits being extremely expensive, not all students can always afford $200 in parking. So I think that expanding that free lot would be a really good idea.
Any other comments? Senator Collard.
I yield to Jonathan and call the question.
Second. Call the question, there's been a second already, so the question has been called, so we will go into voting. How we're gonna vote is if, okay, not everybody has their placard, so you're just gonna either raise your hand or raise your placard when I call for yes votes, and then same for no, and then same for abstain, alrighty? All those in favor, please raise your hand or placard. Any on Zoom, just please let me know. Any no's? Any abstains?
We're just waiting on two more votes.
Yeah.
We're gonna give it one more minute before we close it.
If the two of you haven't voted on Zoom yet, can like vote real quick, just say yes, no, or abstain. So Senator MP, Senator Mutanga, if you guys can vote real quick, that'd be great. Alrighty, so with the vote being 14-1-2, because we closed the voting, because we're not waiting for our Zoom people, the resolution has been recommended to the Parking Transportation Advisory Committee. So congratulations. Alrighty, are there, now that all business is done, are there any announcements? Senator Karki.
There is an off-campus survey that was just launched on Monday. So this is a satisfaction survey that we are sending, hoping to get a lot of input from off-campus students because there hasn't been anything as such done yet. So please share it with other off-campus people that you know of and also fill it if it applies to you. It is attached in the student affairs agenda for today, and it should also be on the
Instagram.
It should be on the Instagram as well. Yes, it should also be on the Teams where the agendas are.
Senator Colleran.
As you all probably hear from all the background noise, we do have CSU Haunted Takeover tonight. But on top of that as well, we do have the Crawford Haunted House, which is like kind of a competing haunted house over in the Custom Commons. We have that from 7 to 8:30 p.m. and I'll be bringing the reception, like I'll be handing out cotton candy for that. As RHA between 8 to 9, so I'd be happy to see you all over there.
Is that cotton candy free?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Are there any other announcements? Yes, Mark.
Mentioned a couple weeks ago, just real quickly about talking about surveys. The CSU has their every other year survey that will be coming out, launching on Friday. If you receive an email, it'll be coming from an email from me or from the university, but a letter will be from me. And we appreciate everybody filling out. It's one of the things that we use for our data to be able to help improve the building, our services and programs. So there's 3,500 random students that will be picked. And there'll be one student picked out of the people that respond for a $300 shopping spree at the computer store. So if you get that, please get it into us. It's good information for us to help do better for students. Thanks.
Are there any other announcements? Alrighty, seeing none, we will go into final roll call. Sorry. Senator Hassan. Senator Franson.
Here.
Senator Belogan. Senator Emke's on Zoom. Senator Pompey. Senator Bugney. Senator Villegas. Senator Karki. That Karki. Senator Mapanga is on Zoom. Senator Dietrich. Senator Spouts. Senator Moore. Senator Mabo. Senator Parekh. Senator Karki. Senator Livingston.
Here.
Senator Riggle.
Here.
Senator Colleran.
Here.
Senator Zelmer.
Present.
Senator Hillstead.
Here.
I'm here, President Naroa.
Present.
VPJ. Alrighty, and this meeting is adjourned at 6:09 p.m.
Ask everybody to try to remove yourself from this floor as soon as possible, because this is where everybody's supposed to be off by 6 o'clock. Thank you. The building will be closing.